Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Meyer, and I'm here to talk to you about symbolic interactionism and Gestalt therapy's empty chair technique. Over the past few weeks, we've talked about individual therapies or theories of counseling. Symbolic interactionism was one theory we studied, as well as Gestalt theory. And as we went on, we talked about the idea of integrating theories of counseling together. In the chapter on integration, we study four main types of integration. There's technical eclecticism, theoretical integration, common factors integration, and assimilative integration. Technical eclecticism looks at the presenting problem or the identified needs of the client and seeks to serve the client's needs by picking treatment options or techniques that fit that client's specific needs. In theoretical integration, you have two or more therapies that are combined fully with the hope that they will result and be a better constituent therapy than the one that stood alone. Common factors integration approaches therapy or theories as seeking to find core ingredients that are shared between the therapies and theories with the eventual goal of creating more efficacious treatments. Assimilative integration is a firm grounding in one theory or one system of psychotherapy with a willingness to incorporate similar or very close practices and views from other systems. While we talk about symbolic interactionism and the Gestalt therapy empty chair technique tonight, I want you to think about how that set of theories is integrated. At the end, I'd like us to reflect on which set of integration theories really fits this model. A few weeks ago in Dr. Park's class, we talked about symbolic interactionism. Symbolic interactionism focuses on the small-scale interactions of a person within his or her environment, and the person's interaction with that environment creates meaning. Some visual cues like facial expressions can help us understand symbolic interactionism. Before we go too much further, let's take a look at this video on symbolic interactionism.
Symbolic interactionism takes a small-scale view of society. It focuses on the small-scale perspective of the interactions between individuals, like when you hang out with a friend, instead of looking at large-scale structures like education or law. By looking at the small scale, symbolic interactionism explains the individual in a society and their interactions with others, and through that, it can explain social order and change. The theory was compiled from the teachings of George Herbert Mead in the early 20th century. He believed that the development of the individual was a social process, as were the meanings individuals assigned to things. People change based on their interactions with objects, events, ideas, other people, and they assign meaning to things in order to decide how to act. For example, if I had sat under the shade of trees all my life, and I was on a long walk today and spotted a big tree, I might want to sit under it. The tree means shade on a hot day to me. Herbert Bloomer continued Mead's work and actually coined the term symbolic interactionism to describe this theory of society. He proposed three tenets to explain symbolic interactionism. Let's say I do decide to sit under that tree on my long walk today. I step off the path and sit down and lean back against the trunk. Bloomer's first tenet was that we act based on the meaning we have given something. I consider the tree as a place to rest, so I'll go lean against it. As I'm sitting there, another person stops to warn me that all trees are infested with ants. Bloomer's second tenet was that we give meaning to things based on our social interactions. The same thing can have a different meaning for different people. For the person talking to me, the tree is a breeding ground for creepy crawlies, and they are going to avoid it. But I'm quite happy with my seat in the shade, and I haven't been bothered by any ants, so I'm content just to sit. We have different views of the tree, and so we act differently. As I'm sitting there talking to this lovely person, I feel something tickle my shoulder, and suddenly I jump up as something bites my back. Turns out the tree was infested with ants. Now that I have been bitten under a tree, I might not sit under the next one I find because it might also be infested with ants. Bloomer's third tenet was that the meaning we give something is not permanent. It can change due to everyday life. The meaning I give to trees has changed after my interaction with the infested tree. A big tree now means shade on a hot day with a potential for getting bit. So let's sum up the three central ideas of symbolic interactionism. They are that action depends on meaning, that different people assign different meanings to things, and that the meaning of something can change. But there are some criticisms to symbolic interactionism as a theory, because it doesn't ask the same questions as the large-scale sociology theories do. It is sometimes considered as supplemental rather than a full theory, because it is restricted to studying small interactions between individuals. While this is true, symbolic interactionism gives a different perspective to sociology that is necessary for fully understanding a society. It is capable of explaining how aspects of society can change as they are created and recreated by social interactions. It examines society on a small scale and gives the individual the same importance as the society as a whole, and is a necessary view when studying a society.
Now that we've reviewed what symbolic interactionism is, let's go back and review a little bit about Gestalt theory. Gestalt theory, started by Laura and Fritz Perls back in the 40s and 50s, is based on some very key factors, and we aren't going to go into too much detail tonight because we've already covered Gestalt theory in another lesson. But some big tenets to remember when thinking about Gestalt theory is that Gestalt theory comes from a phenomenological approach where the reality of the client is interpreted in a relationship between the observed and observer within the context of their world. It has three main ideas of therapy. The three are contact, conscious awareness, and experimentation. Contact is being in touch with the here and now and the present moment with what the client is experiencing. Conscious awareness is focused on attention on what that person is in touch with in those situations, whether it's their emotions, their physical body, their thought processes, etc. And experimentation is the act of trying something new in order to increase understanding or awareness within the client. One of the pieces of experimentation in Gestalt theory is the empty chair technique, which we'll see in a little bit, really helps understand the symbolic interactions between one-on-one individuals. Lastly, there's the awareness process that I want to remind you about. This is the process of therapy where the client becomes further aware of his or her own understandings of the world around him or her. This is the mode of healing or the process of therapy in Gestalt theory. Now let's take a quick look at the empty chair technique. As the picture shows, the empty chair technique is a practice of talking to an empty chair. But it's not just talking to an empty chair. It's a technique in Gestalt therapy where a client experiments with a role-played conversation with an imagined person, or this person could be a very real person in their life. The client is facing an empty chair that represents that person. The client will experiment talking to the person or subject in the chair, most commonly used as a treatment for abuse victims, but it can be also used due to complicated grief to a complex or sudden loss in the client's life. Let's take a look at Dr. Grand's Gestalt therapy role play. He's done a great job. We're going to jump in partially through his 12-minute session here because we're short on time, and watch this video clip he has with the client.
I think so.
Okay. So I think you remember how this works. You'll be talking to, in this case, the internal critic, right? So the internal critic's on the side of settling down, getting married. And then when you're ready to have the critic respond, you'll switch to that chair and respond to the emotional, need-driven, and wanting side. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and speak directly to the internal critic.
I want to finish what I'm doing, and I want to finish what I started. I've worked so hard on my career path, and I'm so close to finishing. And I want to finish for me. I want to accomplish those goals that I've set for myself, and it's something I'm passionate about. Switch.
So you made your statement. Yeah, you ready to switch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead, switch. So now you're the internal critic.
There's always time to pursue a career, but I need to focus on what's expected of me at this time. I'm the best age for having kids. I have a loving boyfriend who is ready and wants to get married and settle down. And you are being selfish by just following a path that you can take at any time.
All right, so the internal critic accusing the emotional side, in this case, the career side, being selfish. Now notice your posture. It's very linear, right? You're upright.
Mm-hmm.
I notice you kind of put your hand out a little bit when you were talking. Try to think of the internal critic's body movements. Try to act that out a little bit.
Okay.
So due to time, we're going to have to pause Dr. Grand's video clip here and continue on with our lesson. But if you could take a couple minutes as pairs and discuss some of the things that he did in his Gestalt empty chair technique with his client that resembled symbolic interactionism. All right, why don't we come back together as a class and talk about some of the similarities and differences between symbolic interactionism and the empty chair in Gestalt theory. I know that some of you have been having great discussions in your pairs about the similarities between the two. Can someone share with me some of the similarities or some of the differences? That's right. Some of the similarities of Gestalt therapy or theory and the empty chair technique with symbolic interactionism is that they both focus on the present moment, and they both identify that meaning is derived from encounters with the individual's environment. Both theories also act as frameworks for viewing an individual client where the client is seen as the creator. Some major differences include that Gestalt theory is focused on awareness and balance in the person's life, and the goal is integration. Whereas symbolic interactionism is focused on how the self reflects society and organizes behavior, therefore creating meaning for the client. These are some of the similarities and differences, and I just wanted to present these two theories and take a moment to integrate them through the Gestalt empty chair technique. One of the things that I noticed when watching Dr. Grand in his video clip was just how present in the moment he was with the client and her parts of self. He identified some of her emotions, her feelings, and her interactions with each part of self. Therefore, in the discussion, giving her meaning to what was going on internally to her life, which is very similar to symbolic interactionism, looking at that individual interaction to create meaning. So before we wrap up tonight, I just want to quick review with you the integration models and find out from your perspective which of these four models best fits symbolic interactionism with the empty chair technique. I have picked one. If you guys wouldn't mind sharing out from your small groups after discussing for a couple of minutes what integration model works best with symbolic interactionism and the empty chair technique and Gestalt theory, and then we'll wrap up for the evening. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. The one integration model that I really found key in studying Gestalt theory and symbolic interactionism theory was the common factors integration. Both theories have very similar common factors, and combined, they can create more efficacious treatments based off of these commonalities, in that they can really hone in on the specific needs of an individual client and their interactions and the meanings that they create in their own individual world. So for this specific theory, I want to promote that it is a common factors integration. And I want to thank you for your time tonight. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for the evening. If you have any more questions, feel free to email me. I'll be in the rest of Dr. Park's classes for this semester. Have a great night.